The woman at the door said, "Oh, your wife is already inside." I opened my mouth to correct her. She was not my wife. She was my realtor. We had known each other for 11 days and approximately 4 house tours, which is a very specific kind of intimacy. The kind where a person knows exactly what square footage makes you flinch and which kitchen layouts you will never admit you love. That is not marriage. That is something else entirely. And then I heard Nora's voice carrying from somewhere near the back of the open house, saying something kind to a nervous-looking couple by the bay window, and I thought, okay, well, there are worse mistakes to make about a person. I did not correct anyone. My name is Daniel Harte. I am 34 years old. I am an architect by profession, which means I am the specific type of person who tours houses for pleasure and then spends the drive home explaining to no one why the sightlines were wrong. I had been looking for a house for 5 months. I had looked at 22 of them. I had not made an offer on a single one. My friend Marcus said this was commitment issues in a trench coat. He was not wrong, but he also had the decorating sensibility of a man who owned 3 beanbag chairs at age 36, so I was not taking housing feedback from him. Nora Callahan had been assigned to me when my previous agent moved out of state with her husband. She was 29, sharp in the specific way that people who are used to being underestimated tend to be sharp, and she carried a small leather notepad that she never seemed to write in, but always had open. She would tap the pen against the corner of her room and then look at me with an expression that said, "You already know what I'm about to say." She was, professionally speaking, excellent at her job. She read what I wanted before I said it. She never pushed. She did not pretend bad light was good light or that a kitchen with no counter space was charming. She just said, "This is a no, isn't it?" And we moved on. The open house on Addison Street was her suggestion. She had texted me a Saturday morning with just the address, and I think this one's close. "Come with coffee. I'm already here." I had come with coffee. She had been inside for 20 minutes before I arrived, which meant she had already spoken to the listing agent, assessed the foundation documents, and formed a working theory about the plumbing. This was how she operated. By the time I walked through a door, Nora Callahan already knew what she thought about the room. The woman who had called her my wife was the host, 50s, warm, clearly delighted by the whole situation. She pressed a brochure into my hand with the enthusiasm of someone who considered today a matchmaking victory and said, "She's been asking about the morning light in the east bedroom. She'll want to show you." "I'm sure she will," I said. I found Nora near the back hallway. She had her notepad open. The pen was tapping against the doorframe. "There's a crack in the plaster here that the paint is covering," she said without turning around. "The settlement pattern is fine. It's cosmetic. But whoever staged this house painted over it 2 weeks ago and hoped no one would notice." "The woman at the door thinks you're my wife," I said. Nora turned. She looked at me for 1 full second. Then she looked back at the doorframe. "I know," she said. I waited. "She introduced herself when I arrived," Nora said. "I was going to correct it. Then she started telling me about the morning light and I got distracted. And after that?" She tapped the pen once more. "After that I decided the paint was more interesting. Something in my chest shifted. Not dramatically, just enough that I noticed it, and then pretended I hadn't. We went through the house the way we always did, her 2 steps ahead, me watching where she slowed down. Nora had a tell. When a room was genuinely good, she went quiet. Not the polite quiet of a person being professional. A different kind. The kind where she was doing the math of imagining a life inside a space, and the math was coming back in her favor. She went quiet in the kitchen. She stood in the center of it for 11 seconds. I counted because I had learned, over 5 months and 22 houses, that 11 seconds meant something. 8 meant she was being polite. 11 meant she was deciding whether to let herself want it. The kitchen had good bones, high ceilings, a window over the sink that caught the early light at exactly the angle that made everything look the way mornings are supposed to look. The countertops were wrong. She would say that immediately. But the space itself was right in the particular way that some spaces are quietly, stubbornly, right before you do anything to them. The countertops are wrong, Nora said. I know, but the window, I said. She looked at me. That look. The one where I had already said the thing she was about to say, and she was deciding whether to be pleased about that or vaguely annoyed. She chose neither. She looked back at the window. The countertops are fixable, she said. The light isn't. You can't install morning light. She opened her notepad. She did not write anything. She tapped the pen twice against the page. Daniel, yeah, I think this might be it. She said it carefully, like she understood that 11 houses before this one had felt almost right, and that almost right is its own kind of loss, and she did not want to be the person who made me want something that then turned out to be wrong. I looked at the window again. I think so too, I said. We were in the east bedroom when the host came to find us. She was the specific type of charming that real estate agents cultivate over years of open houses. Warm and low pressure, and very good at appearing in doorways at exactly the right moment, with just the right expression. What do you think? She asked, directing the question to both of us, though she was looking at Nora. You two have been through the whole house. Is it the one? Nora was at the window. She had her back to us, looking at the yard below. The pen was still. It might be, I said. The host smiled. Your wife seemed to know the second she walked in, she said. The good ones always know. I had corrected no one all morning. It had stopped feeling like an error somewhere between the kitchen and the hallway, and now it sat in the room with us like a third person we had both agreed not to introduce. Nora turned from the window. She was looking at the host, and then she was looking at me, and the expression on her face was the one I had learned over 5 months, but had not, until this exact moment, correctly understood. It was the expression she made right before she said something she had not quite planned to say. The expression of a sentence that had outrun her ability to stop it. Not yet, she said. She said it lightly, casually, the way you would if you were simply correcting a factual error, a logistical misunderstanding, a small clerical mistake between strangers. The host laughed warmly and moved toward the doorway, gesturing at something about the walk-in closet, and the moment should have passed. It did not pass. Because Nora Callahan was very good at her job, which meant she was very good at reading rooms, and she read what had just happened to the room in exactly the time it takes a person to realize that their mouth has said the thing they did not decide to say. And the other person heard it, and neither of them are going to pretend they didn't. Her fingers tightened once around the notepad. She did not look away. She did not do what I expected, which was the small redirect. A laugh, a pivot to square footage, a professional re-entry. She held my gaze for 1 second longer than felt safe. Then she looked back at the yard. The garden is south-facing, she said. Good for herbs. You mentioned that in October. I did, I said. I wrote it down. I looked at the notepad. Still open. Still blank on the page I could see. Nora, I said, the offer window on this house is probably 48 hours, she said. If you want it. If you're sure. I'm sure about the house, I said. A pause. The room held it. That's what I meant, she said. She said it to the window. I have poor survival instincts around women who look at windows instead of at me when they are telling me something true. This is a documented personal failing. I have not worked to correct it. Not yet, I said. She turned. That's what you said, I told her. Not yet. Which is a specific category of answer. It is not a no. It is not a correction. It is a timeline. Her voice dropped just a little. Daniel, I'm just clarifying the language. You're an architect. You always clarify the language. It's professionally ingrained. She looked at me for a long time. The pen was still. She had the expression of a woman who had spent 11 days reading what I wanted before I said it, and was now reconsidering what she had written in the margins. The countertops in the kitchen are wrong, she said finally. You mentioned. But the light is right. A pause. Some things take longer to fix than others. That doesn't mean they're not worth fixing. That sentence did something quiet to the room. She looked back at the notepad. She uncapped the pen. She wrote something, one line, I couldn't see what, and capped it again. I'm going to talk to the listing agent about the settlement report, she said. You should walk the yard. South-facing gardens need afternoon assessment. And after the yard? She was already moving toward the door. After the yard, she said, we'll talk about the offer. She paused in the doorframe. She did not turn around. Among other things, she said. I made an offer on the house that afternoon. 3 months later, when the keys were in my hand and the movers were scheduled, and Nora and I had gone from, among other things, to something that did not yet have a name, but had the shape of something that fit. She helped me carry the first box through the front door. She stood in the kitchen. Morning light came through the window exactly the way she had said it would. The countertops are still wrong, she said. I know. I'm fixing them in the spring. She looked at the window, then at me. The expression had changed, softer than I had seen it in 11 days and 22 houses. Softer than the professional, careful version, more like the thing underneath. Good bones, she said. Good bones, I agreed. I did not mean the kitchen. She knew I did not mean the kitchen. 2 years after that, when people asked how we met, Nora told them a woman at an open house had made a small, understandable mistake about our relationship status. She told them she had corrected it almost immediately. I let her have that version. She knew what she'd said. She knew what not yet meant when she said it, that somewhere between the doorframe and the window and 11 seconds of morning light, she had done the math of imagining a life inside a space. And the math had come back in her favor. It hadn't been the house. It had probably always been her. So here's what I want to know. Have you ever had someone make a mistake about you that turned out to be the most accurate thing anyone had said all year? And is there a moment you almost corrected something you decided to let stand instead? Tell me below. And if you've been here from the beginning, you already know. Subscribe. Every story starts with a moment that changes the whole thing. This one started with 2 words, not yet.